Ever feel like you're constantly juggling tasks, trying to keep multiple plates spinning? I mean, just in daily life, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Now imagine managing a massive construction project. It's a whole other level.
Yeah, it is.
Today, we're peeling back the layers on the crucial discipline that, well, truly makes those complex builds possible. It's like the strategic roadmap behind it all.
Exactly. And that roadmap is what we call project schedule management in the construction industry.
Okay.
And, this isn't just about sticking dates on a calendar. Not at all.
Right, not just a to-do list.
No, it's a highly scientific approach, actually, a really delicate balance. And when you master it, it profoundly impacts the project's budget, its quality.
And I imagine the contractor's reputation, too.
Hugely. It's like the
Yeah.
invisible architecture behind every physical structure you see going up.
So our mission today, then, is to kind of distill the most important nuggets of knowledge from an expert source. Give you a shortcut, really, to understanding the fascinating evolution and, well, the intricate mechanics of modern construction scheduling.
Right. We want to guide you through how these expert teams turn those ambitious blueprints, those big ideas, into actual on-time, on-budget structures.
That was good.
We'll cover, well, pretty much everything, from the basic definitions, the vocabulary,
Yeah, the jargon.
the historical shifts that got us here, right through to the detailed steps involved in actually creating and managing one of these schedules.
Okay.
Our goal is for you, the listener, to walk away understanding not just what effective project time management is, but maybe more importantly, why it's absolutely paramount, especially in a field where precision and punctuality, well, they aren't just goals.
The contractual obligations, right?
Exactly. Non-negotiable, often.
The foundation, why time is money in construction.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a foundational concept. We all sort of get general time management, right? Effectively using your time, organizing your day to be productive. We do it, or try to do it, in our personal lives, our work lives. It's about optimizing the day.
That's a really good starting point because in construction project management, that idea gets much, much more rigorous.
No, so.
Here, it's precisely defined. It's the project team's ability to plan for and finish the project by the contracted time.
The contracted time. That's key.
It's absolutely key. And the indispensable tool for achieving that isn't just, like you said, a to-do list. It's this meticulously crafted project schedule.
Right.
It acts as the time-based blueprint for the entire thing.
And what's fascinating here, I think, is that the core challenge isn't usually about finding, extra hours in the day or extra days.
Right. You rarely get extra time.
The real skill seems to lie in organizing and prioritizing the existing work, tasks, and resources so efficiently
Exactly.
that everything gets done within those predefined, often very inflexible contractual timeframes. It's about squeezing the most out of every single moment you actually have.
And the stakes, well, as you might imagine, they're incredibly high.
I bet.
Almost all construction projects are legally bound by a specific time frame or a definite finish date.
Yeah.
It's right there in the contract.
Not a suggestion, then.
Definitely not a suggestion. It's a non-negotiable obligation. And the general contractor, they're always required to submit a detailed schedule showing their work sequence, proving they can actually meet that deadline.
So it's a legal document, really.
It's a crucial legal and operational document, yes.
And the consequences of, say, falling short, or conversely doing really well and finishing early.
Oh, they can be severe and immediate.
Yeah.
Many contracts have explicit clauses for early finish bonuses,
Oh, nice.
which can be a significant profit boost, absolutely. But on the flip side, there are often substantial late finish penalties. We usually call them liquidated damages.
Liquidated damages. Sounds serious.
They can dramatically erode a contractor's profit margins. Huge financial hits. And beyond those direct financial impacts, there are broader, maybe more insidious indirect consequences.
Like what?
Well, a contractor's reputation in the industry is just completely tied to their ability to deliver on time.
Makes sense.
If you fail repeatedly, you risk not just losing out on future project opportunities, but also the overall trust of clients, partners, everyone.
Trust is everything.
We've all heard that saying, time is money, right?
Sure.
In construction, it's not a cliche. It's an absolute operational truth. It can literally make or break a company.
Okay, so to really navigate this world, we need to get the language right. Let's arm you, the listener, with the basic vocabulary.
Good idea.
Start with the most basic. What is a schedule?
Okay, think of it as a chronological display. It shows all the project activities and events plotted out meticulously on a calendar with their specific start and finish timings.
So a visual timeline, essentially.
A dynamic visual representation of the project's journey through time. Exactly.
Okay.
Now, building on that, project scheduling is the systematic process of determining the exact timing and sequence of all those project operations.
So figuring out the when and the in what order.
Precisely. This careful assembly of individual tasks and how they relate allows you to forecast the overall completion time for the whole project. And the absolute critical keywords here are timing. That's your start and finish dates and sequence.
Sequence being predecessors and successors.
Exactly. What has to happen before what? That's fundamental.
And who's the mastermind behind this plan? Who actually builds the schedule?
That would be the project scheduler. There's no professional role. They're responsible for creating, critiquing, updating, maintaining, managing the whole life cycle of the schedule.
Okay.
And they're often using sophisticated scientific methods like the critical path method or CPM, which I know we'll get into later.
Right.
They might be part of an in-house project team. Or sometimes they're an external consultant brought in specifically for their deep scheduling expertise.
Got it.
Now, let's break down the building blocks within the schedule.
Yeah.
An activity, which we often just call a task.
Okay. Activity or task. Same thing.
Pretty much interchangeable, yeah. It's a basic, measurable, controllable unit of work. It's part of the total project. And crucially, an activity consumes time, cost, and resources.
All three.
All three. Its size isn't fixed either. It depends on the scheduler's philosophy, the project's scale, maybe specific contract rules. It's the doing part, the thing that moves the project forward.
Okay. Makes sense.
Now, contrast that with an event. An event is purely a point in time.
No duration.
No duration at all. It typically marks the start or finish of one or more activities. Think of it like a checkpoint or a target date on the timeline.
And when these events are particularly important, especially contractually,
We call those milestones. These are significant, often contractually defined points in the project lifecycle.
like the start and end.
Classic examples are the notice to proceed, or NTP, that officially kicks things off, and substantial completion, which means the project is basically ready for use, even if there are minor touch-ups left. They're like the major signposts along the project journey, telling you where you are and how far you've come.
From humble beginnings to modern methods, a history of project scheduling.
It's worth taking a quick trip back in time, actually, to see how scheduling evolved, because it wasn't always this scientific.
Oh, really? How did they manage back then?
Well, in the earliest days, think about builders putting up homes, roads, even grand temples. They relied almost entirely on common sense, accumulated experience.
Trial and error.
A fair amount of trial and error, yeah. And for those really monumental projects like the Seven Wonders, concerns about resource limits or strict time constraints were often, well, secondary.
Secondary to what? Pleasing the pharaoh.
Pretty much. Pleasing rulers, deities. Efficiency, as we understand it now, just wasn't the main driver.
It's incredible how much that's changed. You compare that to today's project.
And night and day.
Regardless of size, modern construction is under intense financial and time pressure. Optimize every moment, every dollar. It's a completely different mindset from building the pyramids, I guess.
Absolutely. A total contrast.
So where did the modern tools start to emerge?
Well, the origins of what we recognize as modern bar charts, a tool still fundamental today, are generally credited to Henry Gantt.
Ah, the Gantt chart.
Exactly. He was an American mechanical engineer, active around the turn of the 20th century. Gantt really advanced these charts as a practical tool, not just for visually managing routine operations, but also, crucially, for measuring employee productivity.
Interesting. Productivity measurement, too.
Yeah, that was a key part of his contribution. That's why they're so often called Gantt charts.
And I heard the military used them quite early on.
That's right. A really memorable historical application.
Mm-hmm.
The U.S. military used Gantt charts extensively during World War I.
Wow.
For what? Mostly logistics. General William Crozier was a big proponent. He saw their power in organizing the massive logistical efforts needed for mobilization resources, troops, supplies. It was a huge undertaking.
A real testament to their practical value in complex situations.
Absolutely.
So just to describe a bar chart for someone who maybe hasn't seen one recently.
Sure. They're graphic representations. Project activities are shown as time-scaled lines or bars.
Time-scaled meaning the length matters.
Exactly. The length of the bar is directly proportional to the activity's planned duration. Their key strength is really their simplicity.
Easy to understand.
Very easy to understand, straightforward to prepare. especially useful for field crews to grasp the plan quickly. That's why they remain so popular for displaying schedules, even if complex calculations are happening behind the scenes.
You can see the advantages right away. Time-scaled, simple, easy to interpret. You can customize them, right? Colors, shapes.
Oh yeah, different shapes, colors to highlight things, show work stoppages. You can even load them with extra data budget, man-hours, percent complete.
But there's a catch, right?
There's a crucial point.
Uh.
The emphasis has to be on maintaining simplicity. If you overload a bar chart with too much information,
It loses its clarity.
exactly, you risk losing its primary value as a clear communicative tool.
And despite those advantages, they had a major weakness.
They did. A very significant shortcoming became obvious as projects got more complex. Their main limitation is that they do not visually show the logical interdependencies between activities.
Ah, so it shows task B starts after task A finishes.
Right, but it doesn't visually explain why. Why does framing have to be done before roofing starts? The bar chart doesn't explicitly show that dependency.
And that was a critical gap for managing complex projects.
A huge gap. It needed addressing.
So that gap led to...
It led directly to the development of logic networks.
Okay.
These are logical and chronological graphic diagrams. They show activities and events specifically designed to illustrate how tasks depend on each other. There's a massive leap forward.
Taking it from just a timeline to a web of connection.
Exactly. A dynamic web.
And this made scheduling more objective, less gut feeling.
Much more objective. It gave management a more objective and scientific tool.
Mm-hmm.
Less reliance on just one project manager's experience or intuition, more on a systematic, data-driven approach.
Brought more rigor to it.
A whole new level of rigor and predictability, yes.
Now, I heard there were different types of these network diagrams early on.
There were. Early on, you had arrow diagrams. In those, the arrow itself represented the activity, and the node, the circle connecting them, was just an event, a point in time.
Yeah.
But later, node diagrams became dominant, and they're what we mostly use today. In node diagrams, the node, usually a box, represents the activity itself.
The task.
The task, yes. And the arrow, drawn between the nodes, just represents the logical relationship, the dependency.
And specific types of node diagrams emerged.
Yes, things like precedence diagrams, which Professor John Fondel introduced. They offered capabilities arrow diagram couldn't, like different types of relationships, and became foundational.
It's really quite an evolution. And then computers came along in the 80s.
Right. Personal computers turbocharged everything. They allowed for more complex bar charts, sure, but they also really fueled the rise and dominance of the critical path method, CPM, using these network diagrams.
So CPM became the engine.
CPM networks became the brain of scheduling, doing the heavy lifting, the calculations. But interestingly, bar charts remain the popular display format.
The face of the schedule.
The face, exactly. For reporting, communicating visually, they still work together today. That network logic engine and the bar chart display, it's a powerful combination.
Crafting the master plan, the 10 steps of project schedule creation.
Okay, let's get practical. Let's walk through the actual process of building one of these schedules.
Mm-hmm.
Step one seems absolutely fundamental, breaking the project down into activities.
It is absolutely foundational. This is where you take that big, ambitious project concept.
The whole elephant.
The whole elephant, exactly. And you meticulously break it down into progressively smaller, more manageable components. Eventually, these become the distinct activities or tasks we've been talking about.
And there's a structure for this?
Yes, we often use a work breakdown structure, or WBS.
WBS.
At the top, level 0, that's the entire project. Then you break it down. Level 1 might be major phases, level 2 subphases, and so on. You could potentially go down to level 6.
6 levels deep.
For massive projects, yeah. You might end up with 8,000 to 20,000 individual components.
Wow. That sounds like a lot to manage.
It is, but modern software handles it easily. Back in the day, schedulers had to keep activity counts low because they were doing calculations by hand or with limited computing power.
Right. So what's the main goal of breaking it down so much?
The core objective is to achieve confidence in measurements.
Confidence in measurements, meaning?
Meaning you have a solid basis for estimating how long each activity will take before you start it. And then, equally important, accurately gauging its percentage complete while it's in progress.
Okay.
And you keep breaking it down until the scheduler and the whole project team feel that level of confidence is satisfactory for each piece.
So what factors guide how you break it down? It can't be random?
Definitely not random. Several key factors come into play. First, think about the nature of the work, or its homogeneity.
Homogeneity, meaning keeping similar things together.
Ideally, yes. Activities should be homogeneous. Same type of work, performed by the same crew, measured by one unit. For instance, you wouldn't lump form work, rebar placement, and concrete pouring into one build wall activity.
Why not? Seems logical enough.
Because they involve different crews, carpenters, ironworkers, concrete finishers, and they're measured differently. Square feet of formwork, tons of rebar, cubic yards of concrete. Keeping them separate gives you much more precise planning and tracking.
Ah, I see. Makes sense. What else?
Second, location, 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 or floor or segment.
So where the work happens matters.
Absolutely. Even if activities are identical work, same true, you must separate them if they happen in different places. Think of a multi-story building. Pouring the concrete slab on the 5th floor is a distinct activity from pouring the slab on the 6th floor, even if it's the same mix and crew.
Because the timing and sequence are different for each floor.
Precisely. You track each floor's progress independently.
Okay, third factor.
Third is size or duration. Sometimes an activity, even if it's perfectly uniform, is just too big for effective control.
Like building a really long fence.
Great example, a 600-foot concrete block fence. Instead of one huge activity, you might break it into 6 100-foot segments. Easier to manage, track progress, assign resources.
And contracts sometimes force this.
They do. Many contracts, especially public ones, set a maximum duration for any single activity, maybe 14 days or 20 days. It forces that granular oversight.
Okay. Number 4.
Fourth, consider timing, chronology, or phase. Contractors often do the same type of work in stages.
How so?
Well, take the slab on grade, the ground floor concrete. You might leave most of it until late in the project, but you might pour an early section, maybe build some temporary walls around it to create a secure, dry storage area early on. So even though it's the same type of work pouring concrete, those distinct timings mean they have to be separate activities in the schedule.
Got it. What's next?
Fifth, and this one's quite interesting, is the level of confidence in the duration estimate.
Confidence again. So how subjective is this?
It's somewhat subjective, but it's linked to complexity and size. It's the divide and conquer principle. Breaking down a really complex or large activity into smaller pieces just naturally boosts the scheduler's confidence in estimating each smaller piece accurately.
Like eating the elephant one bite at a time?
Exactly. You often see confidence shoot up as you break things down to mid-levels, then it kind of plateaus. The goal is to keep breaking down until you hit a satisfactory confidence level for each bit. And that level might vary from activity to activity.
Okay. And the last factor.
Finally, responsibility or trade. This is vital. Activities should ideally be assigned to a single crew or party.
Meaning one subcontractor or one specific team.
Yes, a specific general contractor crew or subcontractor X, Y, so that progress and performance accurately reflect that specific group's work. If you combined 2 different painting crews with different speeds into one painting activity,
The progress numbers would be meaningless or misleading.
totally misleading. You wouldn't know who was performing well and who wasn't.
You really start to see the practical advantages of this detailed breakdown. You can roll up activities for a high-level view for management,
Right, the big picture.
but you can also drill down deep to investigate problems or analyze specific parts during the job.
It offers incredible flexibility, both the forest and the individual trees.
So schedulers and cost estimators, do they always break things down the same way?
Not necessarily. That's a great point. They often approach it with slightly different priorities.
How so?
Well, both care about the type of work. A cost estimator might focus more on materials and quantities. They might group things together based on material type, whereas a scheduler would separate them based on sequence or location.
Because the scheduler is obsessed with time and flow.
Exactly. Sequence, chronology, location, those are the scheduler's main drivers. This often means the scheduler needs a higher level of detail initially, maybe down to level 5 or 6, to capture everything needed for sequencing and costing. Then you can roll it up to simpler views for different reports.
Okay, so we've broken it down meticulously. What's step 2? Getting the timing right.
Step 2, determine activities' durations, the critical art of estimation.
And crucially, you said this isn't just the scheduler pulling numbers out of thin air.
Absolutely not. It's a truly collaborative effort. It involves the project manager, team leaders, superintendents, and especially the subcontractors.
The people doing the work.
The people doing the work often have the most realistic understanding of how long specific tasks take. And this shared responsibility, agreeing on these durations, carries significant liability.
Because the whole plan depends on them being reasonably accurate.
They form the absolute backbone of the entire project plan. Get them wrong, and everything else starts to crumble.
So where do these production rates actually come from?
Several reliable sources. Contractors often rely heavily on their own historical records from similar past projects. That's invaluable data.
If they keep good records?
If they keep good records, absolutely. Then, consulting with experienced crew leaders, subcontractors, or other subject matter experts, their practical knowledge is key.
Makes sense.
You can also look at equipment or vendors' technical specifications. How fast can that concrete pump actually deliver? You also have commercial databases like RS Means or Spawn's Pricebook, which provide industry benchmarks.
Like standard times for standard tasks.
Exactly. And even, believe it or not, internet searches can sometimes yield useful references, but you have to be really careful vetting the reliability of online sources.
Right, take those with a grain of salt.
A large grain, sometimes. But the most crucial point here is that these raw rates are just a starting point.
They need adjustment.
Significant adjustment. They must be adjusted based on specific project conditions. Site access, weather patterns, crew experience, complexity, a whole host of productivity impacting factors that are unique to that job. No two sites are identical.
Customization and expert judgment are key.
Absolutely paramount.
And the importance of getting these durations accurate, it feels massive.
It cannot be overstated. Get this wrong, and you get that domino effect.
What kind of dominoes?
Well, accurate durations allow for efficient crew planning. You know exactly how long you need Team A or subcontractor B. They're vital for accurate cost calculation because crew costs are time-dependent. They let you plan resources for succeeding activities, materials arriving just in time, equipment ready, inspections scheduled. And of course, they're essential for predicting the project's overall finish date and milestones.
Which impacts cash flow, procurement, everything.
Everything downstream.
And the consequences if you lack accuracy, if your durations are way off.
Chaos, basically. You get delayed crews sitting idle, burning labor costs. Subcontractor conflicts erupt because one trade holds up the next. You get material shortages if predecessors finish unexpectedly early.
Or costly storage problems if they finish late and materials show up anyway?
Exactly. Materials piling up with nowhere to go, cash flow gets disrupted, plans get thrown out, chaos reigns on site. It all leads to wasted money and huge delays. It's a recipe for project failure.
Wow. Okay, so duration is key. What about calendars? Does everyone work Monday to Friday?
Rarely that simple in construction. That's where activity calendars come in. Schedulers need to assign these.
Why?
Because not all crews work the same schedules. Some might be 5 days a week, others 6, maybe even 7 on critical tasks. And this matters because contracts often count time in calendar days, not just work days.
So weekends count against you sometimes.
Often they do. These calendars also need to incorporate non-work days holidays, maybe allowances for predictable bad weather days in certain seasons. Sometimes you need special calendars if an activity depends on a resource, like a specific crane, that's only available certain days.
And you mentioned codes earlier.
Right. Activities also get assigned codes like by area, floor level, or responsibility, which subcontractor. This allows the software to easily group, sort, and filter activities.
So you can create custom reports.
Exactly. Generate targeted reports for specific teams or managers without overwhelming them with the entire 1,000 activities schedule. It's all about targeted communication.
Okay, breakdown done, durations estimated, calendars assigned. What's step 3?
Step 3 is defining the logical relationships. This is where you weave together that intricate web of interdependencies between all those activities.
How task A relates to task B.
Precisely. And while it sounds simple, it can be quite delicate. There are often multiple ways to depict the same logic, so clarity is key. It's about accurately mapping out the planned sequence, how tasks rely on each other.
What are the main components of defining this logic?
Key components are, first, assigning the predecessor activities, the ones that must come before, and defining the type of relationship.
You mentioned 4 types earlier.
Right. The most common, the foundation really, is finish to start, FS. Activity A must finish completely before activity B can start. Simple.
Like you have to finish digging the foundation before you can start pouring concrete.
Perfect example. Then you have start to start, SS. Activity A must start before activity B can start. Maybe you start clearing the site before the survey crew starts their work within the cleared area.
Okay.
Finish to finish, FF, activity A must finish before activity B can finish.
Yeah.
Think about testing and final cleanup. The testing needs to finish before the final cleanup can be declared finished.
Right.
And the least common is start to finish, SF. Activity A must start before activity B can finish. It's used in specific cases, maybe related to system changeovers or just-in-time deliveries.
Okay, so predecessor and relationship type. What else defines the logic?
Second, you define the amount of lag or lead.
Lag and lead. Remind me.
A lag is a minimum waiting period between linked activities. It consumes time, but no cost or resources. Think concrete curing time. A lead is just a negative lag. It allows an overlap. Successor starts before the predecessor is fully finished.
Like starting drywall while exterior cladding is still happening, but far enough ahead.
Exactly. And thirdly, you incorporate any imposed constraints. These are those external restrictions we talked about that might override the standard logic.
The landscaping delay example.
Right, or delaying expensive equipment installation for cash flow.
Okay, now this brings up that earlier question. What about things outside the contractor's direct control? Owner approvals, design clarifications.
That's a critical point here in the logic step. Schedulers absolutely must pay attention to external relationships.
Dependencies on the owner, designer, government agencies.
Exactly. Their actions, or sometimes their inactions, like a delayed permit approval or a slow response to an RFI, request for information, can directly blow up the contractor's schedule.
So you have to build those external dependencies into the logic network.
You have to. Even though you can't directly control them, you have to represent them accurately to show their potential impact and manage the risk.
Okay, so activities, durations, calendars, logic. Now what? Put it all together.
Step 4. Create the network and perform CPM calculations.
The critical path method calculations.
Right. After defining everything, activities, durations, sequences, the logic network is drawn, usually within the software now, and the software performs those CPM calculations.
Does the scheduler need to know how to do it by hand anymore?
It's highly recommended. While software automates it, understanding the manual calculation process, the forward pass, the backward pass is crucial for troubleshooting, validating the software's output, or even managing smaller projects without sophisticated tools. It ensures you really understand what the software is telling you.
And the big output from this step is?
The project's calculated finish date. This is the date the schedule predicts for completion, based purely on all the data and assumptions you've fed into it. Durations, logic, resources, calendars.
It's the schedule's best guess, based on the plan.
Exactly. It's the data-driven prediction.
And then comes the reality check.
Then comes the crucial reconciliation. That calculated finish date needs to be compared against the contract-imposed finish date.
The date the owner demands in the contract.
Precisely. Ideally, your calculated date should be earlier than the contract date.
Why? To give you some wiggle room.
Exactly. That difference provides a buffer, what we call time contingency or project float. It offers a crucial margin for error, unforeseen issues, gives the project team some strategic breathing room.
Like building in extra travel time for an important meeting.
Perfect analogy. You hope you don't need it, but you're glad it's there if you do.
Bringing the schedule to life resources, review, and real-world execution.
Okay, we have a network. We have a calculated finish date, hopefully with a bit of buffer. Now, step 5, resource and cost loading and leveling. This sounds like where the rubber meets the road, financially speaking.
It really is. This step is about grounding that theoretical schedule in reality. You allocate the necessary costs and resources, money, people, equipment, materials to each activity.
And this requires close collaboration with the cost estimators.
Absolutely critical cooperation. The schedule and the estimate are intrinsically linked. They have to talk to each other constantly.
So how does the loading work?
Well, resource loading is assigning the specific required resources, maybe 3 carpenters, 1 crane, 50 cubic yards of concrete in specific amounts of timings to each activity.
Okay.
Cost loading can be done 2 ways.
Yeah.
You could directly assign a dollar amount to each activity, or more commonly, and frankly much better, you load the resources themselves.
The carpenters, the crane, the concrete.
Right. And then you price those resources using a resource dictionary built into the scheduling software. This dictionary holds the unit prices dollars per hour for a carpenter, rental cost per day for the crane, dollars per cubic yard for concrete.
Ah, so the software calculates the cost based on the resources assigned.
Exactly. The activity gets its resources, the dictionary has the prices, the software does the math.
And you said resource loading is better than just putting a dollar figure on each task? Why?
Oh, the advantages are huge. Think about ease of change and updates. Imagine the price of concrete mix suddenly jumps.
Happens all the time, I bet.
It does. With direct cost loading, you'd have to manually find and update maybe hundreds of individual concrete pour activities. It's tedious and super error-prone.
Nightmare.
With resource loading, you change the unit price for that concrete mix once in the resource dictionary, one click, boom. The software instantly updates the cost of all 150 activities using that mix.
Wow. Huge time saver, fewer mistakes.
Immense time saver, drastically reduced errors. Plus, you get better integration.
Integration with who?
With accounting and procurement. Resource loading tells them exactly what resources are needed, how much, and precisely when. The schedule becomes dynamic if an activity gets delayed, the resource requirements shift automatically, and procurement knows immediately.
Very useful.
It also provides invaluable data for future projects. You're estimating and storing productivities, like man-hours per unit, which are vital for estimating durations and costs on the next job. You build your historical database.
And resource loading enables resource leveling. What's that?
Resource leveling is a fantastic optimization technique. It aims to minimize those wild day-to-day swings in resource usage. Needing 20 electricians one week and only 5 the next.
The peaks and valleys.
Exactly. Leveling smooths those out by shifting non-critical activities, the ones with float, within their available float time.
So it doesn't delay the project.
Correct. It only uses the existing buffer time on non-critical tasks to create more consistent, efficient demand for labor and equipment. Fewer periods of crazy overtime, followed by people standing around.
That sounds incredibly efficient.
It can save a lot of money and headaches. Some advanced software even allows for resource-driven activities.
What does that mean?
If an activity needs, say, a fixed total of 100 man-hours of a specific trade, the software can flexibly schedule that work based on how many people of that trade are available each day, letting the duration float until the 100 hours are done.
So if you only have half the crew available, the task just takes twice as long automatically.
Essentially, yes, provided it doesn't violate other logic.
Yeah.
It ensures resources aren't over-allocated. And finally, a key benefit of all this loading is the ability to easily generate detailed cash flow diagrams.
Showing when the money goes out. Essential for financial planning.
Absolutely essential for the contractor's financial health.
What about overhead and profit? Where do they fit in?
Good question. Contractors have options. O&P can be spread across individual activities, prorated somehow. Or, a common and often cleaner approach is to load it into a single hammock activity.
A hammock activity.
Yeah, it's an activity that stretches, like a hammock, across the entire project duration from start to finish. You load all the project overhead and profit into that one activity. It keeps the individual work tasks showing just their direct costs.
Keeps things cleaner at the task level.
Exactly.
Okay, loaded, leveled. Now step 6. Review, finalize, and approve. The final check.
This is the crucial health check stage. The scheduler goes through it with a fine-tooth comb, looking for errors, omissions, redundancies, missing links, any illogical sequences.
A quality control check.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then the project manager, superintendents, key team leaders, they all conduct a thorough review. They need to understand it, agree with it, and formally accept it. It's the last chance to catch mistakes before it becomes official.
And this approved version becomes?
It becomes the baseline schedule. This is a critically important document. It often gets formally incorporated into the contract documents. It's the definitive benchmark against which all future progress will be measured.
So it has to be accurate.
It absolutely must be accurate and reflect the agreed-upon plan. Any deviation later on will be judged against this baseline. In fact, there are formal tools, like the DCMA 14-point assessment, often used to rigorously evaluate the quality and integrity of a baseline schedule before it's accepted.
Ensures it's a solid plan.
Exactly. Ensures it's not just wishful thinking.
And once it's approved, how is it shared? Does everyone see the whole massive thing?
Usually not. Custom reports are generated. Use those activity codes we talked about: responsibility, area, phase the scheduler, creates tailored subschedules.
So the electrical subcontractor sees only the electrical tasks relevant to them.
Pretty much. Or maybe their work, plus the key predecessors they depend on. The goal is to give each party the specific information they need to do their job, without burying them in thousands of irrelevant activities. It's all about effective, targeted communication.
Okay, baseline approved, reports distributed. Now we actually build the thing, right?
Now we move into the execution phases. Steps 7, 8, 9, and 10. Step 7 is implement the schedule.
Theory becomes practice.
Exactly. The plan moves from paper or the screen to the actual construction site. The schedule becomes the project's living roadmap. It needs to be followed as closely as possible, primarily by the general contractor's project management team, the PM, the superintendent, the foreman.
And does top management need to be involved?
Strong commitment from upper management is absolutely crucial. They need to champion the schedule, enforce its use, and support the site team in adhering to it.
It's vital everyone remembers the schedule isn't just, pretty wallpaper for the site trailer walls.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a living, breathing document. Look, forecasts are never perfect in construction, we know that. But the commitment has to be twofold. First, create the most accurate, realistic schedule possible.
Do your homework up front.
Right. And second, diligently adhere to it on the ground. Take it seriously as the guiding force. It requires discipline from everyone.
Okay, so we're implementing. What's step 8?
Step 8 is monitor and update the schedule. This isn't a one-time thing, it's a continuous cycle.
Oh.
Periodically, as required by the contract, often monthly, sometimes bi-weekly on faster projects. The schedule must be updated to reflect actual progress made on site. What really got done, what started, what finished.
And incorporate any changes that happened?
And implement any approved changes.
Yeah.
Yes. The scheduler's central here. They gather progress reports from the field, integrate that actual data into the schedule software, run the calculations again.
To see the impact of the progress or lack thereof.
Exactly. And then they issue the new, updated schedule to all the relevant parties. This update process is also critical because it directly feeds into things like progress payments.
So the schedule update justifies the payment application.
Often, yes. The percentage complete shown in the updated schedule forms the basis for invoicing the owner. So it's a crucial operational and financial tool.
Then step 9, implement change orders. Are changes really that common?
Almost inevitable in construction. Things rarely go exactly according to the initial plan. The owner changes their mind, unforeseen site conditions pop up, design details need adjusting.
So changes, additions, deletions, substitutions happen?
They happen, and they can impact cost, time, or usually both. The scheduler's role here is to integrate approved change orders into the schedule.
Only the approved ones?
Only the formally approved ones. This might mean adding new activities, changing durations, adjusting logic. It could potentially even modify the baseline schedule if the change is significant enough and agreed upon.
And can you use the schedule to analyze changes before they're approved?
Yes, that's a huge benefit.
Yeah.
This step also allows for running what-if scenarios. The scheduler can model a proposed change order to see its likely impact on the project's finish date and cost before anyone commits to it. It's a powerful risk assessment and negotiation tool.
Very useful for decision-making. Okay, finally, step 10.
Step 10 is closing out. Feedback and archiving. The project's built, the keys are handed over. But it's not quite done.
What's left?
After physical completion, there's the fiscal closeout, settling all invoices, payments, dealing with warranties, and then crucially, all project documents get meticulously archived.
Including all the schedules.
Especially the schedules.
Yeah.
The original baseline, all the periodic updates throughout the project, and the final as-built schedule showing what actually happened and when.
Why keep all that?
2 main reasons. First, it's essential documentation for resolving any future claims or disputes that might arise, maybe years later. Second, and maybe even more importantly, it builds that invaluable historical database.
For estimating future projects better.
Exactly. Analyzing past project performance, actual durations, actual costs, problems encountered is the best way to improve estimating accuracy for the next job. Continuous improvement. All these documents should be stored systematically in an easily accessible format so that knowledge isn't lost.
Diving deep into the critical path method, CPM.
Okay, let's really dive into the engine behind much of modern scheduling, the critical path method, or CPM.
The scientific backbone, you called it.
It really is. CPM is a powerful scheduling technique. It uses those networks we talked about to graphically display the work plan, mapping out all the tasks and their dependencies.
And its main purpose.
Its core purpose is twofold. First, to determine the overall length of the project. How long will it take from start to finish, based on the plan? And second, crucially, to identify the specific activities that are critical to meeting that completion date.
The ones you absolutely cannot delay.
The ones that, if delayed even by a day, or sometimes even an hour on very tight schedules, will directly push back the entire project's finish date.
So what makes it scientific? You mentioned that earlier.
Right. It's not based on gut feelings or just looking at a bar chart. CPM takes clearly defined inputs from the scheduler, those activities, their durations, the logic connecting them.
All the stuff we just talked about setting up.
Exactly. It takes that structured input and applies known mathematical equations, algorithms really, to calculate precise outputs.
Like what outputs?
Things like when each activity can start and finish both the earliest possible times and the latest allowable times. It calculates the expected completion date. And of course, it identifies that critical path. It removes subjectivity from the core time calculations.
And this is especially useful for construction because...
Because construction projects are inherently complex. Unlike a simple linear assembly line, construction often involves multiple parallel paths of work happening simultaneously.
different trades working in different areas at the same time.
Exactly. These paths overlap, they cross, they depend on each other in intricate ways. It creates this dynamic web of interdependencies that, frankly, the human mind just can't track accurately without a systematic tool like CPM.
Too many moving parts.
Way too many moving parts to keep straight reliably without a methodical approach.
Okay, so let's talk about that critical path. What does it really mean for you, the listener, trying to understand a project?
The critical path is precisely defined. It is the longest continuous path of activities linked by dependencies through the network, from the project's start node to its finish node.
The longest path determines the shortest time. Sounds weird.
It does sound counterintuitive, but think about it. Because it's the longest sequence of dependent tasks, it dictates the minimum time needed to complete the entire project. Nothing can finish faster than the longest required chain of events.
Okay. I get it. The chain is only as strong, or in this case, as fast, as its longest link sequence.
Exactly. And the critical part is, if any one activity on that specific path gets delayed
The whole project finish date slips by the same amount.
directly, one-for-one slippage, that's why it's critical. It has zero room for delay.
So how does CPM actually find this path and figure out timings? You mentioned calculations.
Right. It involves two main algorithmic passes through the network data. First is the forward pass.
Moving start to finish.
Yes, moving sequentially from the project start, activity by activity following the logic links towards the finish. This pass calculates the early start ES and early finish EF dates for every single activity.
The absolute earliest each task can possibly begin and end.
Correct. Assuming all its predecessors finish at their earliest possible time and the early finish date of the very last activity in the entire network. That becomes the project's calculated finish date.
Okay, that gives you the earliest finish. What's the second pass?
The second is the backward pass. As the name suggests, it works in reverse.
Starting from the end and working back.
Exactly. It starts from that calculated project finish date, or sometimes a required finish date, and moves backward through the network against the flow of the logic arrows. This pass calculates the late start, LS, and late finish, LF, dates for each activity.
Which represent?
The absolute latest an activity can start or finish without delaying the overall project completion date.
So comparing the early dates from the forward pass with the late dates from the backward pass tells you something important.
It tells you everything. That comparison is how we identify the critical path. Activities on the critical path will have their early start equal to their late start and early finish equal to late finish. There's no difference, no slack. And it's how we calculate float.
Okay, let's talk about float. You mentioned total float first. Define that for us.
Total float, TF, is the maximum amount of time an individual activity can be delayed from its early start without delaying the entire project's calculated finish date.
So it's like a buffer.
It is a buffer, but it's often a shared buffer. Think of it like extra time available on a specific path through the network. If one activity on that path uses up some or all of the total float.
There's less or none left for the activities further down that same path.
Exactly. It affects everyone downstream on that path, potentially impacting their ability to start late. It belongs to the path, not just the one activity.
Okay, shared buffer. Then you mentioned free float.
Right. Free float FS is different. It's the maximum amount of time an activity can be delayed without delaying the early start of any immediately succeeding activity.
So it only affects itself.
Pretty much. That's why we often call it the unselfish portion of total float. Using up your free float won't impact the earliest start time of the tasks directly following you.
Can you give an example?
Sure. An activity might have, say, 10 days of total float, meaning its path can afford a 10-day delay somewhere along it. But it might only have 3 days of free float. That means it can be delayed up to 3 days without affecting its direct successor's earliest start. But if it's delayed 4 days,
It starts eating into the float needed by others or delays the successor's early start.
exactly, it starts impacting others on the path. Free float is the buffer you own entirely yourself.
That's a really useful distinction.
It is. Though a quick practical note for project managers. While understanding both early and late dates and both types of float is essential for planning,
Yes.
the reports you give directly to the field crews, the superintendents, the foremen, it's often best not to show the late dates or maybe even the float values.
Why not? Seems like useful info.
It can cause confusion, or worse, it can inadvertently encourage delays. A crew might see they have 10 days of float and think, great, we can take it easy, not realizing that float might be needed later or that using it impacts someone else.
Parkinson's law work expands to fill the time available.
Precisely. It's often better to keep the field focused on meeting the early dates to maintain momentum and preserve that float for genuine unforeseen problems.
Good practical tip. Now, even though we're talking audio here, you mentioned network diagrams have specific drawing rules. Why are those visual rules important for us to grasp, even conceptually?
Because they enforce the clarity and rigor of the logic. Understanding the principles helps you visualize the connections, even if you're not looking at a diagram.
Okay, so give us some of those key drawing tips for node networks.
Sure. First, activities should ideally be drawn as squares or rectangles, not circles.
Why the shape obsession?
Because a box gives you distinct sides, top, bottom, left, right. This allows you to connect relationship lines clearly to the start side or the finish side of the activity box. It removes ambiguity.
Okay, makes sense.
Second, related to that, connect activities only from their designated start or finish sides. No weird diagonal lines connecting in the middle of a box. Keep the logic flow explicit. Third, don't combine independent relationships. If task C depends on both A and B finishing, draw two separate lines, A to C and B to C. Don't try to merge them into one arrow. That obscures the distinct dependencies.
Keep it clean.
Keep it clean. Fourth, try to avoid crossing relationship lines whenever possible. Sometimes it's unavoidable on complex diagrams, but minimizing crossings makes the network much easier to read and follow.
Less spaghetti.
Exactly, like spaghetti. Fifth, always begin the entire network with a single project start milestone node, one clear origin point.
And similarly for the end.
Yes, always end the network with a single project finish milestone node, one clear destination. This ensures the calculations work correctly and everyone understands the overall boundaries.
So these seem like small details, maybe just neatness rules. Why are they so vital? It almost sounds like you're just being fussy about drawing.
They seem small, but they are far from just aesthetic. Sticking to these principles ensures absolute clarity in the logic. It prevents ambiguity. It makes the CPM calculations robust and reliable.
And avoids mistakes down the line.
Exactly. If the network logic is tangled or unclear, you get misinterpretations, calculation errors, and those errors can have huge real-world consequences on the project's time and cost. These rules enforce the scientific rigor needed for dependable scheduling. They matter.
Advanced scheduling concepts, constraints, lags, and the near critical.
All right, let's layer on some more advanced scheduling concepts now. Things that add nuance and control, starting with constraints.
Constraints, you mentioned these briefly, they override the logic sometimes.
Exactly. A constraint is basically an externally imposed restriction that directly affects an activity's start or finish date, or both. We use them for reasons that aren't easily captured by just drawing standard logic links between activities.
Can you give us those examples again, just to refresh?
Sure. A classic one is delaying the installation of expensive, delicate equipment. Logically, you could install it as soon as the room is ready, but a constraint might say, do not start before day 150 for cash flow reasons, or maybe site security is inadequate until then.
Or the landscaping example.
Right. Postponing landscaping, using a constraint like, finish no earlier than day 200, to protect the new plants from ongoing construction traffic, even if the logical predecessors finished way earlier. The logic allows it, but an external factor imposes the constraint.
So constraints can cause conflicts with the calculated dates.
They absolutely can. That's their power and their danger. They can override the calculated early or late dates from the CPM logic. They can delay individual activities, entire paths, sometimes even the whole project. It's a powerful lever, but needs careful handling.
Because it can mess up the pure logic flow.
It can distort the underlying network logic, yes.
Are there different types of constraints?
Generally, yes. Scheduling software offers various types. You have static constraints, which are tied to a fixed calendar date, like must start on October 15th. The issue here is if the rest of the schedule shifts, you might need to manually update that fixed date to keep it relevant.
Less flexible.
Right. Then you have dynamic constraints. These are often tied to a condition relative to the calculated dates, like start no earlier than a certain date or finish no later than, or even as late as possible.
As late as possible, what does that do?
It tells the software to push that activity's start right up against its calculated late start date, consuming all its float automatically. Useful for things you want to delay intentionally, like spending money. These dynamic ones adjust automatically if the project dates shift.
So, given how powerful and potentially disruptive they are, should schedulers use constraints freely?
Absolutely not. This is critical. Schedulers must minimize the use of constraints. And crucially, never use them as a shortcut or an alternative to figuring out the proper logic.
Why not? Seems easier sometimes.
Because a schedule littered with constraints often signals poor scheduling practices, or maybe hiding other underlying problems. Too many constraints make the schedule rigid, inflexible. They can severely hinder vital analyses like what-if scenarios for changes, acceleration analysis, risk simulation, or delay claim analysis.
Makes the schedule harder to manage and understand dynamically.
Much harder. It masks the true dependencies. Use logic first. Constraints only when absolutely necessary for external factors.
Okay, message received. Use constraints sparingly. Next advanced topic, lags and leads.
Right. We touched on these. A lag is that minimum waiting period inserted between linked activities. Finish to start with a 5-day lag, for example.
The concrete curing time.
The classic example. Crucially, a lag consumes time, but no cost or resources. It's just waiting time. And a lead is simply a negative lag. It allows an overlap. A finish to start with a -3-day lag means the successor can start 3 days before the predecessor finishes.
The overlap. Got it. How are they treated in the calculations?
In the CPM calculations, lags and leads are treated just like activities in terms of how they affect timing. Lags add time in the forward pass, reduce time available in the backward pass. Leads do the opposite because they're negative.
But they're distinct from activities and events.
Very distinct. Activities consume time, cost, and resources. Events have zero duration. Lags leads only consume or provide time. They're time modifiers, not work packages or milestones.
You mentioned different types of lags, too.
Yes, conceptually we can think of 3 types. First is the wait lag. This is waiting time that isn't really part of either activity's work content.
Like the concrete curing or waiting for a permit.
Exactly. The wait is external to the physical work of pouring or the work that needs the permit. Second is the start lag. This is used with start-to-start relationships.
How does that work?
It means the successor activity only needs a portion of the predecessor to be done before it can begin. Remember the excavation starting 4 days after clearing grub begins. That 4-day lag reflects that only the initial clearing is needed to let excavation start in that area.
Doesn't have to wait for all the clearing.
Right. And the third type is the continuous lag. This is often used with finish to finish or start to start, where 2 activities overlap for their duration but need a constant buffer between them.
Like the roof sheathing and shingling example. Keep the crews safely separated.
Perfect example. The lag maintains that necessary time or distance separation throughout the overlapping work.
And lags can even be a percentage, like 50% lag.
Yes, some software allows that. You can say, start successor activity after 50% of the predecessor's duration is complete. The software then calculates the actual number of days based on the predecessor's duration. Very flexible.
Now, you said earlier there can be multiple ways to show the same logic using different relationship types or lags.
That's true. Sometimes you could achieve the same sequence using, say, a finish-to-start relationship or maybe a start-to-start with a lag.
Which is better?
Generally, simplifying schedules is preferred. If you can represent the logic clearly using basic finish-to-start relationships, that's often better than introducing complex lags, which can sometimes be harder to interpret or manage.
So maybe break an activity into 2 smaller pieces sometimes?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes splitting an activity like clearing grub north area and clearing grub south area allows you to use simple FS relationships between them and subsequent tasks, avoiding the need for a more complex SS plus lag relationship. Clarity is often king.
Okay, clear logic is key. Final advanced topic in this section, near-critical activities.
Ah, yes, the project's watch list. These are activities or entire paths of activities that have very little float.
Almost critical, but not quite.
Exactly. Think of a path through the network that's maybe only 1 or 2 days shorter than the actual critical path.
Right.
Those activities are near critical.
And the danger is?
The danger is, if any activity on that near-critical path experiences even a small delay, it could suddenly become the new critical path, instantly consuming its small float buffer and potentially delaying the entire project.
They're lurking just below the surface.
Precisely. They pose a significant risk.
Is there a strict definition of near critical? How much float is little?
There's no single universal number, unfortunately. Depends on the project, the industry, the contract. But generally, activities with total float of, say, less than 3 to 5 days are often flagged as near critical.
Okay.
Some might use 10 days on very long projects. It's a judgment call, but the principle is the same. Identify paths with minimal buffer.
And why is tracking them so vital?
Schedulers and project managers must pay extremely close attention to them. They often use software filters to highlight and monitor these near-critical activities, especially if those activities also carry other high risks, like relying on unique equipment or a single supplier.
And this isn't a one-time check.
Well, no. This process has to be continuous, updated with every schedule update cycle. Activities move in and out of the near-critical list all the time as progress is made and durations maybe change. It's a dynamic hot list, requiring constant vigilance to proactively manage risk and prevent surprises.
External realities impose dates and project buffers.
Let's talk about another layer of reality. Project float, sometimes called management float or time contingency.
This is the buffer we mentioned earlier, the difference between the calculated finish and the contract finish.
It can be, or it can be, time deliberately built in. It's highly recommended practice to include some form of time contingency in the schedule.
Why? What's it for?
It's specifically for those events that are, frankly, likely to happen and will impact the schedule, but might not technically qualify the contractor for a formal time extension under the contract terms.
Like what kind of events? Minor delays, unexpected small issues.
Exactly. Maybe slightly worse weather than average, but not catastrophic, minor crew inefficiencies, small coordination hiccups, the general friction of complex projects. It's a buffer for the expected, but often unpredictable, bumps in the road.
So this raises that question again. How much time and where does it live in the schedule? Does it get added to individual tasks?
No, that's crucial. This float belongs to the project as a whole, not to individual activities.
So activity durations should be realistic, not padded.
Activity durations should be lean, the best estimate of the actual work time. They shouldn't be fluffed up with hidden contingency. This project-level float is a separate, strategically managed buffer.
Okay.
It needs to be estimated carefully, based on risk assessment, and used judiciously for those events with unknown timing or severity. It's not an excuse for sloppy estimating of the base durations. It's a professional risk management tool.
Like a business having a contingency fund.
Perfect analogy.
Is this ethical? Do owners object to contractors building in this buffer?
It's entirely ethical and professional. Responsible clients shouldn't object as long as the contractor is still committing to meet the overall project finish date defined in the contract. The buffer exists within that time frame.
How do you actually show it in the schedule? Do you just have a gap at the end?
There are a few ways. You could simply have your internal calculated finish date be earlier and maybe just name it differently. Target completion versus contract completion. Or you could convert the project float into an actual activity.
An activity called contingency.
Could be. Or maybe something like project buffer, preparation for final completion, or even strategically absorb some of it into the duration of the final punch list activity right at the end. Make it visible, but controlled.
Okay. Now let's bring back that other external reality. The imposed finish date from the contract.
Right. Nearly every project has one. Stipulated by the owner, legally binding. This is where the contractor's internal plan, including any buffer, meets the external demand.
And how does this imposed date affect the CPM calculation, specifically that backward pass?
It becomes the starting point, or rather the ending point target for the backward pass calculation. And this leads to two main scenarios when you compare it to your internally calculated finish date.
Scenario A.
Case A. The imposed finish date is later than or equal to the finish date calculated by the forward pass based on your durations and logic.
So the owner gives you more time than your plan says you need.
Exactly. No problem here. The contract is less demanding than your own schedule. That difference, that extra time the owner gives you, can simply be absorbed as additional project float or buffer.
Nice position to be in.
It is.
Yeah.
Interestingly, in this case, even activities on the longest path, the natural critical path, might show some positive float relative to the contract date, which kind of makes you reconsider what critical truly means in that context, critical to the internal plan, maybe, but not to the contract date yet.
Okay, that's the good case. What's case B?
Case B, the imposed finish date is earlier than your calculated finish date.
Uh-oh. The owner wants it done sooner than your plan says is possible.
Precisely. This is where a significant problem arises. It's a major red flag.
And this is where that weird term comes in, negative float.
Exactly. When the imposed finish date used for the backward pass is earlier than the earliest possible finish date from the forward pass, the schedule calculations will result in negative float values for activities on the critical path.
What does negative float physically mean? You can't have negative time.
You can't. It's a calculated hypothetical number. It literally means that even if every single activity is performed on its absolute earliest possible start date, following all the logic perfectly, the project still won't meet the imposed deadline.
You're already behind schedule before you even start.
Conceptually, yes. It's a mathematical representation of a time debt. It shows how much time you must somehow shave off the critical path just to meet the deadline. Imagine your flight leaves at 5 p.m., but the drive plus security takes 6 hours, and it's already noon. You have negative 1 hour of float. You're mathematically guaranteed to miss the flight unless you find a much faster way.
Okay, so what are the implications of seeing negative float in a schedule?
Huge implications. If a schedule, especially one prepared before the project even starts, shows negative float, it's a direct signal that the contractor's current plan, with its assumed durations and logic, will not satisfy the contractually required finish date.
So what do they have to do?
The contractor must take action. They either have to find ways to significantly accelerate the schedule, shorten durations on the critical path, change the logic, or they need to go back to the owner and formally request a later finish date, providing justification. Ignoring negative float is not an option.
And if it appears during an update, mid-project?
It's an urgent alarm bell. Negative float appearing in an in-progress update means the project has experienced delays or slippage. It's falling behind the plan needed to meet the contract date. It signals an immediate need for a recovery plan, corrective actions, or potentially notifying the owner of a delay. It's a critical management signal demanding resolution now.
Speeding up and streamlining schedule acceleration.
So that brings us neatly to schedule acceleration. If you have negative float or other reasons, you need to shorten the schedule.
Acceleration, also called
Schedule compression, or sometimes schedule crashing. It's formally defined as shortening the project schedule duration without reducing the project scope. That last part is key.
not just cutting stuff out to finish faster.
Exactly. You're doing the same amount of work, just in less time. This whole process is a core part of what we call the time-cost trade-off. You're deliberately choosing to spend more money, usually, to save time.
And this can be planned from the start or done reactively.
Both. It can be a strategic decision made before construction even begins, maybe to meet a tight deadline or capture a market opportunity, or it can be implemented during execution as a recovery schedule to get back on track after delays have caused that negative float we just discussed.
You mentioned it's a four-way interaction: schedule, cost, quality specs, and scope. Can you unpack that relationship again quickly?
Sure. Think of them as interconnected levers.
Okay.
If you reduce the scope, do less work. Generally, both cost and duration decrease. Simple enough.
Right.
If you accelerate the schedule, shorten duration, but keep scope and specs the same, typically, cost increases. We'll see why in a moment. There can be exceptions, but usually faster costs more. And if you change the specifications or quality requirements, that can impact cost. Maybe cheaper materials save money but take the same time. And door schedule. Maybe a higher spec needs more careful work, taking longer. They all influence each other.
Makes sense. So why would a contractor deliberately choose to accelerate, knowing it usually costs more? What are the main drivers?
Several key reasons. One, as we discussed, is simply to ensure the schedule meets a tough, contract-stipulated finish date. Sometimes this need is obvious right from the bidding stage.
Got to meet the deadline.
Got to meet the deadline. Another reason is responding to high market demand. Finish this project early, get your crews and resources onto the next profitable project sooner. Maximize throughput.
Okay, pure business strategy.
Right. For public projects, acceleration might be driven by public convenience. Finish that roadwork faster to minimize traffic disruption.
Makes sense.
And then paradoxically, sometimes acceleration is done to reduce overall project cost.
Wait, how does spending more money save money?
It comes down to indirect versus direct costs. If the savings you get from reducing the project duration, less overhead, less site supervision time, are greater than the extra direct cost of accelerating the work itself, then the total cost can actually go down, up to a certain point. We'll graph this out conceptually in a bit.
Interesting, okay. What else?
Well, avoiding those hefty penalties. The liquidated damages for finishing late is a huge motivator. Or, conversely, chasing those early finish bonuses can make acceleration financially attractive.
Okay, lots of reasons. So how do you actually do it? What are the methods for accelerating work?
There's a whole toolbox of strategies. It's not just about yelling work faster.
I figured chuckles.
Chuckles.
Right.
It starts with increased planning. Investing more time and money upfront in detailed planning and coordination can prevent delays later. Choosing the right contract type, like design build, which integrates design and construction, naturally allows for more overlap and faster delivery. Adding contractual incentives, those bonuses and penalties we mentioned, provides motivation. Constantly optimizing the schedule, looking for clever ways to resequence tasks or use resources more efficiently.
What about overlapping phases more?
That's called fast tracking. Overlapping design and construction phases more aggressively than usual. Often goes hand in hand with design build. Utilizing pre-construction services like value engineering or constructability studies can identify time-saving opportunities before you even break ground.
Using technology.
Absolutely. Employing building information modeling, or BIM, is huge. It helps detect clashes between different systems, like pipes hitting ducts, in the virtual model before they happen on site, avoiding costly and time-consuming rework. Improving communication protocols and using better technology to connect the owner, designer, and contractor keeps information flowing faster.
And on the ground, more people, longer hours.
That's the classic approach. Implement overtime, add more crews working in parallel, or increase the number of shifts per day, working nights or weekends.
What about materials and equipment?
Acquiring specialized materials, equipment, or technologies that simply work faster or more efficiently. Think pre-engineered building components, modular units assembled off-site, high-speed cranes, advanced formwork systems.
Innovation helps speed things up.
Definitely. Offering direct incentives or bonuses to crews and subcontractors for meeting accelerated milestones can boost motivation. And just generally improving overall project management methods and processes, better coordination, faster decision-making contributes significantly.
That's a lot of options. It really underscores that point about planning, doesn't it? Many of these need to be decided early.
Absolutely critical. Many of the most effective acceleration techniques require early and thorough planning. You can't just decide to use modular construction halfway through the project. The Construction Industry Institute, CII, actually identified over 90 distinct techniques for schedule compression, categorized by phase or function. It's a deep field.
Okay, let's get back to that cost-time trade-off. You said accelerating usually increases costs, but sometimes saves overall. How does that work visually?
Let's break down the cost components. First, direct cost. This is the cost directly tied to the work itself. Labor, materials, equipment directly used for tasks. As you accelerate, direct cost generally increases, and it increases at an increasing rate.
Why an increasing rate? Why does it get progressively more expensive to save each extra day?
Two main reasons. First, as you shorten the schedule, more and more paths through the network tend to become critical or near critical. So you have to accelerate activities on multiple paths simultaneously, which costs more. Second, you usually exhaust the cheaper acceleration methods first, like optimizing logic. To keep shortening, you have to resort to progressively more expensive options, heavy overtime, premium costs for faster material delivery, renting that super expensive specialized crane.
So the low-hanging fruit gets picked first.
Exactly. Visually, the direct cost curve slopes upwards, getting steeper and steeper as duration gets shorter.
Okay, that's direct cost. What about indirect cost?
Indirect costs are things like project overhead, site office rent, utilities, salaried management staff insurance. Costs that accrue based on time, but aren't tied to specific work tasks. These usually decrease at a constant rate as you accelerate.
Why constant?
Because if your daily overhead is, say, $5,000, then saving one day saves you $5,000. Saving the next day saves another $5,000. It's generally a linear relationship. Shorter project duration means less total time for these costs to accumulate. Visually, it's a downward sloping straight line.
Okay, direct costs curve up faster and faster. Indirect costs slope down steadily. So the total cost...
The total cost is the sum of the two. And this is where the interesting interaction happens. Initially, when you start accelerating from the normal duration, the savings from the decreasing indirect costs are usually greater than the increase in direct costs. So the total cost initially decreases.
So accelerating actually saves money at first.
Often, yes, up to a point. But as you continue accelerating, that direct cost curve gets steeper and steeper. Eventually, the increase in direct costs surpasses the savings from indirect costs.
And the total cost starts going back up.
Exactly. After hitting a minimum point, the total cost starts to increase, and it increases at an increasing rate because the direct cost component starts to dominate. Visually, this creates that characteristic U-shaped total cost curve.
That U shape is key. It shows there's an optimal point.
Precisely.
So for you, the listener, there are 3 key points on this conceptual cost-time curve to understand. Can you define those?
Sure. First is the normal duration, ND, and normal cost, NC. This is the starting point, the duration and cost. If you just proceed under ordinary circumstances, no deliberate acceleration effort.
Business as usual?
Business as usual. Then, at the bottom of that U-shape, you have the least cost duration, LCD, and least cost, LC. This is the sweet spot. It's the duration where the total project cost is at its absolute minimum. Accelerating further or decelerating from this point will only increase the total cost.
The most economically efficient duration?
Correct. And finally, at the far left, the shortest possible time, you have the crash duration, CD, and crash costs, CC.
Crashing.
Crashing it. This represents the absolute shortest possible duration you can achieve for the project, using maximum acceleration efforts on all critical paths. And predictably, this leads to the highest total cost, often significantly higher.
Only done under extreme pressure, presumably.
Usually, yes, like facing massive liquidated damages that outweigh even the high crash cost.
So final thoughts on acceleration. What's the takeaway?
The main takeaway is that it must be scientific and systematic, not just throwing money and overtime randomly at the project. It needs careful analysis of that U-shaped curve to find the right balance.
Only accelerate as much as needed.
Only to the extent needed to meet the objective, whether that's the contract date or the least cost duration. Contractors managing multiple projects need to prioritize acceleration efforts carefully as resources are limited. And crucially, remember there are physical and practical limits to how much you can accelerate. You can't build a skyscraper in a week, no matter how much money you throw at it.
Gotta respect reality.
Gotta respect physics and logistics. And finally, unplanned, chaotic acceleration can totally backfire. It can lead to burnout, mistakes, lower quality, and ultimately cost more and take longer than a well-planned approach. It needs discipline.
A different approach, linear scheduling method, LSM.
Now, we spent a lot of time on CPM, which seems ideal for complex projects with lots of interacting paths like buildings or industrial plants. But you hinted earlier that not all construction fits that mold.
That's right. What's really interesting here is that some construction projects are fundamentally different in nature. They are inherently linear and repetitive.
Linear and repetitive, like what?
Think about building highways, laying pipelines, constructing tunnels, large-scale earth-moving operations, even high-rise building construction floor by floor. These involve a relatively small number of core activities repeated over a long distance or many similar units.
Okay, I can picture that. Laying mile after mile of pipe.
Exactly. For these types of projects, the complexity isn't necessarily in thousands of unique interacting tasks, but in managing the continuous flow and repetition of a few key operations efficiently. And for these, the linear scheduling method, LSM, is often a much more powerful and intuitive alternative to CPM.
Linear scheduling method, or LSM. Okay.
Oh.
What is it?
It's fundamentally a graphical method. Instead of a network diagram, activities are represented by lines plotted on an XY graph. It gives you a very different visual perspective focused on progress over time along a linear path.
And this isn't a brand new idea either.
Not at all. LSM, or very similar methods known historically as line of balance, has a rich history. It was famously used during the incredibly fast construction of the Empire State Building back in 1930-31.
Wow. For the floor-by-floor repetition.
Precisely. Managing the cycle time for each trade moving up the building. And more recently, it was a critical tool for managing the massive linear English Channel tunnel project in the late 80s, early 90s. These were huge, repetitive undertakings, perfectly suited for this kind of visualization.
So how does the graph actually work? What's plotted?
Typically, the x-axis represents time, just like in a Gantt chart, but the y-axis represents work progress. This could be physical location along a highway, like station numbers, distance tunneled, a specific repetitive step, or even the floor number in a high-rise building.
Okay, time on the bottom, progress up the side, and the activities.
Activities are shown as lines drawn on this graph, and here's the key. The slope of each activity line is directly proportional to its production rate.
Slope equals speed.
Exactly. A steeper slope means a faster production rate covering more distance or units per day. A flatter line indicates a slower pace. You can see the speed of each operation visually.
And the main focus of LSM is, unlike CPM's focus on the critical path.
The core focus of LSM is on achieving continuous resource utilization. It's all about keeping the crews and equipment for each repetitive activity moving smoothly and continuously along that linear path, the road, the tunnel, up the building.
Minimizing stops and starts.
Yeah.
Maintaining a steady flow.
Precisely. Avoiding the inefficient stop-start rhythm that can sometimes happen if you just schedule repetitive tasks using standard CPM logic without considering the continuous flow aspect.
So how does it manage the dependencies between these flowing activities?
It uses the concept of buffers, shown graphically. You have a time buffer, which is the horizontal distance between two activity lines on the graph. This represents the minimum time gap required between the two operations at any given location. It's like float for the earlier activity relative to the later one.
Okay, time separation.
And you also have a distance buffer, which is the vertical distance between the lines. This represents the minimum physical separation needed between the two crews or operations, maybe for safety or just working room.
Like the paving crew needs to stay 500 feet behind the grading crew.
Exactly. And the fundamental rule in LSM is that the lines representing successor activities must not violate these required buffers. The lines cannot get closer, horizontally or vertically, than the defined minimum buffer allows. If they do, on the graph, it signals a conflict one crew is catching up too fast, potentially causing interference or safety issues.
So the graph visually flags potential clashes in the flow.
Immediately. It's very intuitive.
What are the steps to build an LSM schedule? Is it similar to CPM?
The basic steps are similar in concept, but tailored to the linear approach. First, you determine the work activities. As we said, for LSM, this is typically a smaller number of core repetitive activities, maybe just 5 or 10 key operations for a pipeline project.
Okay. Fewer activities than a complex CPM.
Generally, yes. Second, you estimate activity production rates. This is similar to estimating durations for CPM, but the focus here is explicitly on the rate of progress, like linear feet of pipe laid per day, or square feet of paving per hour, or floors completed per week.
The slope of the line.
The slope of the line, exactly. And third, you develop an activity sequence, defining how these repetitive operations follow each other. This is often done using start-to-start relationships with specified time lags, the horizontal buffer, and maybe finish-to-finish relationships as well, again, often with lags, to ensure proper separation.
Now, you mentioned something really interesting before production adjustment. How can slowing down actually speed things up overall? That still feels counterintuitive.
It does, but it highlights the power of LSM in optimizing the entire system, not just individual tasks. Let's use a simplified example, like laying 1,000 feet of pipe, maybe involving excavation, bedding, pipe laying, and backfilling.
Okay, 4 main steps.
Right. Now, maybe the pipeline crew is naturally the slowest, setting the overall pace. The excavation and backfilling crews might be capable of working much faster.
So they'd finish their section quickly and then wait.
Exactly. If you just let everyone work at their maximum rate, the fast crews would constantly be catching up to the slower ones, then stopping, waiting, then starting again. Lots of inefficiency. Idle time.
Makes sense.
But with LSM, you might analyze the flow and realize that by slightly adjusting, perhaps slightly slowing down, the production rates of the excavation and backfilling crews.
Making them match the pipelaying pace more closely.
Precisely. By synchronizing the workflow, making the slopes of the lines more parallel on the graph, you minimize those wait times. You create a smoother, continuous flow. And in some cases, like the example from the source text, this synchronization, even involving slowing some tasks, allowed the bottleneck activity, pipelaying, to start earlier overall, resulting in the entire 1,000-foot project finishing 2 days earlier.
Wow. By deliberately slowing down some parts, the whole thing finished faster. That's optimization.
That's the power of focusing on system flow and resource continuity, which LSM does beautifully for repetitive projects.
And if you can't adjust production rates, maybe the equipment has a fixed speed.
Good point. If adjusting rates isn't feasible, another strategy is to plan the work in distinct intervals or segments. A faster crew might work for a period, then take a planned break, allowing the slower crew to maintain the required time or distance buffer, then the faster crew resumes. It keeps the flow going without forcing impossible speeds or causing clashes.
Lots of flexibility in managing that continuous flow.
Yes, and it's worth mentioning, while there is specialized software out there specifically designed for LSM, like Trimble Telos, you can actually perform the calculations and draw these LSM diagrams using standard spreadsheet software like Microsoft Excel with a bit of setup. So it's quite accessible even without investing in niche software if you have linear, repetitive work. Outro.
Wow. What an absolutely incredible deep dive. We've really journeyed into the strategic mind of a project manager today, haven't we?
We certainly have. It's a complex world.
From that foundational breakdown of tasks, getting down to the nitty-gritty, all the way to the intricate dance of critical paths, constraints, float, we've really seen the science and the art of keeping these massive, complex construction projects on track.
Yeah, and hopefully it's clear now that project schedule management is just so much more than setting a few deadlines on a calendar.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about that meticulous planning up front, truly understanding those complex interdependencies between tasks, strategically allocating your resources, people, money, equipment, and then constantly adapting to the external realities.
Like those imposed dates or the need to accelerate sometimes.
Exactly. Every single detail, from a seemingly small lag between activities to understanding the different types of float, plays a really crucial role in the overall success, the symphony of a well-run project.
And the power of these tools we've discussed, whether it's the analytical rigor of CPM that you need for a complex hospital or skyscraper, or the continuous flow optimization of LSM for that long pipeline or highway.
Right, different tools for different jobs.
The power is that they transform what could be subjective experience or gut feeling into objective, actionable intelligence. They give project teams the ability to not just reactively manage, but to truly master the flow of work.
And that mastery is what ensures projects get delivered, ideally within budget, on time, and meeting the required quality standards. It connects all those dots.
Now, if we connect this to the bigger picture, beyond just pouring concrete and erecting steel,
Yeah, I think there are broader lessons here.
think about how these core principles breaking down huge, complex goals into manageable steps, really understanding the dependencies between those steps, anticipating risks, and building in buffers, optimizing your approach. How applicable is that?
Almost universally applicable, I'd argue. Whether you're managing a career change, planning a major personal project, leading a team in a totally different industry, the fundamental disciplines of planning, sequencing, resource management, and risk mitigation that we see on a construction site, they translate almost anywhere you have a complex objective.
That's a great point. It's a way of thinking, really.
It is a systematic way of tackling complexity.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner, listening today? Well, the next time you drive past a massive construction project, you see that new tower crane dominating the skyline, or that intricate bridge taking shape, you'll know that beneath the hard hats, the noise, the heavy machinery, there lies this sophisticated, largely invisible roadmap, a master schedule, meticulously crafted, constantly updated, guiding every single step, every trade, every delivery towards a successful, timely completion.
And realizing the depth of that planning, the complexity being managed behind the scenes,
Yeah,
that, I think, is truly an aha moment.
it really is.
It's not just happening by chance.
For the deep dive, thanks for joining us on this exploration. Keep exploring, keep learning.